Take your seat. We move on to our next keynote, the next tech wave. And the keynote speaker is Mr. Meetul Patel, COO, Microsoft India. Before I request him to take the stage, I will say a few words of introduction for him. Mr. Meetul Patel oversees business and product planning, marketing, and operations for Microsoft's India subsidiary. He is responsible for defining strategy, managing investments, orchestrating the organization, and monitoring the performance of the Microsoft portfolio across enterprise, public sector, small business, consumer, and partner segments. Prior to this role, Mr. Meetul was the India General Manager for SMS and P, that is small and mid-market solutions and partners. In this position, he was responsible for establishing and executing Microsoft's strategy in this fast-growing segment for over 40 million small and medium businesses. Before this, Mr. Meetul was the General Manager of Microsoft's services business in India. In this role, he was responsible for bringing together IT strategy, solutions, implementation, and critical support services to help clients across industries effectively leverage technology to address their business challenges. Before joining Microsoft, Mr. Meetul spent over 15 years in management consulting at Capgemini, Oliver Wyman, and Accenture. During this time, he helped numerous Fortune 500 companies identify new opportunities, develop business strategies, and undertake major transformation programs across multiple business functions. His clients included major global players in the financial services, healthcare, computing, and communications industries. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Meetul Patel, COO of Microsoft India. A big round of applause for him as he takes on the stage. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at the clicker. Oh, got it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here, and thank you all for being here this afternoon. I've had the pleasure, I guess, and the excitement and joy of being in the technology world for almost 30 years and seen pretty much every trend from the move to the PC, to the internet, to mobility, and now to the cloud and AI. And I think the message I want to deliver to you, if it hasn't landed clearly yet, is that we're on the verge of something bigger than anything we have seen so far. The changes that we saw in the last 20, 25 years, we will repeat and extend and go beyond in the next 5, and that will probably only increase and accelerate over time. I'll try and explain why this is such a mega trend. If you think about it, many of us in this room built careers, industries were formed, even the entire IT services sector in India was created on the back of just one type of device, a PC running software, automating business processes. Maybe at some point we put a mobile phone next to it. But that was it. Entire industries, trillions of dollars of markets, companies formed in the last couple of generations on the backs of 1 or 2 screens. That today is part of a mega ecosystem, and only a tiny fragment of what IT looks like. We look at the world today not as one of a PC or a network or the internet, but a world that we describe as the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge, a completely new paradigm of computing and technology. At the core of this technology lies a very powerful and massive cloud, taking away all of the computing processing that existed on desks and underneath boxes all the way into a central location. And then on the periphery of that is a network of thousands of unique and different devices that are coming about almost every single day, all connected up, all plugging into each other, working with each other, connecting up to the cloud, and creating one fabric of computing. And this is not something that's a dream, it's a reality, because every single tech trend that we've seen that has really stuck has stuck because the fundamental economics of business have changed, or those solutions have changed. And I want to give you an indication of how far and how fast things have happened. Just 10 years ago, the cost of a drone was almost 100 times what it is today. The cost of a sensor was probably 1,000 times more. Mobile phones, 50 times more. DNA sequencing, 1,000 times more. So if you think about it, when the cost drops so much on technologies, the solutions that they apply to expand as well. And so we're seeing this incredible drop in all of these technologies that are enabling us now to actually come up with more and more solutions than we ever could have in the past. So this is why I say the opportunity becomes even bigger for anyone in this space. That 30 years of history that we've all been living in and all the opportunity it's created for us has come about with technology playing in only about 10 to 20% of the world's GDP. It fundamentally operated in the world where we could improve processes, improve administration and functions. We could make things that we did in offices better. But guess what? That's not a big part of the world. In India, it's even a smaller part of the overall economy. The physical world out there, logistics, manufacturing, all the things that go into the cost of goods sold, use technology, but technology was never really part of it because the paradigm was this thing that sat on desks. With all of that technology, that edge network that I talked about, and the cloud, where the computing doesn't reside on things but resides somewhere else, all of a sudden, technology can play in 60% of the GDP. And so if you think about it, this is going to be 3, 4, 5 times bigger than what we've been playing in so far in the space. And probably even more relevant to India than anywhere else in the world, where we're not a professional desk-based economy, frankly. Right? So this opportunity, I'm going to talk about the technologies that really empower this. First is the cloud. And we've all been talking about it for now 3, 4, 5 years. And I want to explain a little bit about what that really means. The cloud, for us, is a new form of computing. It resides, in Microsoft's case, for example, across all the continents where we've built incredible data centers and capacity in extremely efficient ways. So the cost of computing completely drops. Think about it. You have a choice of putting an electricity generator in your house or plugging into the grid that uses a central utility. That utility is cheaper. Now imagine a cloud system doing exactly the same thing, but much more consolidation and even more global scale. And so we are fundamentally dropping the price of computing through this immense, immense cloud. A cloud that accesses and gives you computing power anywhere in the world from any geo that you're in. When you use your phone and you press a button on an app, that app is tapping into incredible computing power that resides somewhere else in the world and not necessarily on your phone anymore. Now, this cloud doesn't just reside in massive data centers. It actually, we have extended it now all the way into the edge, into almost every device. We call it the Azure Fabric. Azure sits in the cloud. We have hardware servers that sit in data centers because local requirements, local conditions, specific applications may require data and processing to reside in a specific geography. And then it extends with what we've created called Azure Sphere into IoT sensors at the very, very tip, in a refrigerator, in a washing machine, in a car tire. And all of that creates one continuous, secure, integrated computing fabric, basically making almost everything in the physical world a possible compute and IT-enabled platform. So it's really, really different from what we've seen. When we used to think about what could be done with technology, we used to think about what could be done on a screen. Today, when we think about what can be done with technology, we have to think about what can be done with anything in the world, including that chair, which could have a sensor and tell you exactly where it is and where it needs to go next. That's the new computing platform that's been created now. And it's easy. Accessing this entire computing power doesn't require you to go buy servers, deploy it, have someone maintaining it, get some programmers to build it. You literally go to www.something.com, you press a button, and you have access to pretty much infinite computing, to networks, to software, to artificial intelligence programs, clicks of buttons. All provisioned, set up, accessible, delivered to you. It just changes everything in terms of the speed at which we can innovate and create, and the costs of that innovation and experimentation. Now, when you have this big cloud, the second major thing that's changed is data. That massive edge that I talked about, all of these devices connected up, are creating incredible amounts of data. I'll give you some examples. 20 billion minimum IoT devices in a couple of years out there. 20 billion IoT devices, probably more. An average person, just by their geo-positioning and use of something like music on their phones, is generating about 1.5 gigabytes of information per day. Those cars that we're talking about, autonomous cars, are generating about 5 terabytes of data a day. That's 50 HD videos that you're watching a day. And then you come multiply that by hundreds of millions of cars and billions of sensors. You can start imagining how much information and data is being collected and being transferred every single second in the world. Now, that data explosion is what allows this thing called digital economy and digital disruption to happen, because that asset allows you to do things you couldn't imagine before. If you know where something is or someone is, you can create a new service around that. If you know the state and condition of something, you can create a new business model around servicing that proactively. But this data is all over the place. Like I said, this amount of immense data is, you got mobile data, you got things about what people are buying on marketplaces, IoT sensors coming in. And the problem is, a lot of that data exists in individual silos. The power of this information comes when you make one connection with the other, just like your brain. If you can say, this is happening, and so is this, and you put the two together, you get an insight or a spark that something new can be created from. And so this new technology paradigm allows us to bring data and information together better than before. I'll give you an example in Microsoft's own product set. When you think about Office 365 and Dynamics and even LinkedIn, you can start, when you put the data together in an information graph and find ways to put it all together, we can now do things we couldn't imagine before. For example, you can imagine if I'm going to a meeting and I've never met the person before, by virtue of it being in my calendar, it can say, you've never met this person before. By the way, here's their profile, because it just went into LinkedIn. This is what they're interested in, because LinkedIn says this is what they've looked at. And by the way, did you know that 4 people in your organization actually know this person? So you may want to call them before and discuss what's going on. And that's happening on my phone as I'm driving. And because I'm driving, Cortana, the voice assistant, is not making me read it. It's just telling me that, by the way, you're meeting so-and-so, here's the situation, I'm going to place a call to your colleague who can tell you more about the last meeting they had. This doesn't take much to imagine, and it's possible when you have data and information and cloud in this kind of format. These are things that could not have been possible when you didn't have cloud or this data integrated in a graph before. And there's thousands and thousands of examples. The next thing now, we've got this incredible compute platform, the size of which the world has never seen. And then you have this incredible amounts of data, all of which can be made sense of. But you can't possibly look at this, gigabyte at a time or even terabyte at a time and make all those connections. This is where we need intelligence. And AI is an inevitable requirement and consequence of these two paradigms. So the way we look at AI, we talked about ex machina, but that's not really what we see as the power of AI. The power of AI is ambient. It's the ability to use AI in almost all the solutions we have to improve that particular one. Not one master intelligence that's all-knowing and human-like in its nature, but rather the use of information in AI in the small things that we do every single day. You use it. We talked about security. Knowing when a breach is about to happen with so many data, AI can connect all the dots and tell us faster. When I was coming here and I was using my Maps tool, it was using AI to predict what the traffic could possibly be. It's about embedding it and making it ambient in everything we do. And I've been around enough to hear about the AI story. I think I probably did this in college and university when I was there 30 years ago. but it's real now. And I have to tell you why. When we talk about this notion of using components of AI to help us in everyday things, there's some incredible milestones that have happened. In 2016, just 2 years ago, machines achieved 96% accuracy in identifying objects compared to humans. Speech recognition achieved parity to humans in 2017. In January this year, machine reading or writing achieved human parity. And in March, translating from one language to another achieved human parity as well. So you can see this acceleration taking place on what AI can do and all of the opportunities that it can create. It has become very, very real now. So what we've done is we've created, on that same cloud, a whole series of AI capabilities, from compute to chatbot services to the databases needed to provide that, as machine learning capability, so that people who have ideas can take those components and embed it into whatever solution they're building. If you're building a customer relationship management system and it could help with using AI for connection, you can use that capability. If you're using something that's working in the IoT space, in supply chains, and you could use some algorithms, you can tap into those algorithms and plug into it. So the idea is to create a palette of technologies on AI that you can then take and use in whatever solutions you're trying to build. It is not about one mega intelligence. It's about how it gets embedded in everything that we're doing. And so all of this is nice, but in the end, the question is it being applied? And I want to give you some examples of things that I can honestly say just 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't even imagine, even as a solution concept, all of a sudden not only being thought of, but being deployed in India. And these solutions span so many different sectors. I'll take one, farming. One of the biggest problems we have in India is we have small subscale farming compared to the rest of the world. 1 acre plots versus 10,000 hectares in other countries. PhDs, highly roboticized farms competing against someone who's barely had an education or is almost illiterate. How do you put those two into the same playing field with each other? And today, with the use of a mobile phone, AI technology, visual recognition systems, sensors in the ground, and then mashing up data about weather and insect proliferation, etc., farmers can actually get alerts that say it's time to plant, it's time to harvest, it's time to kind of take some preventive action against changing weather patterns or insect situations. They're getting the same, if not better, level of knowledge and intelligence than some big farm or farmer with tremendous access to information and insight can get in the rest of the world. That's an application today of this new type of technology. E-commerce revolution we've seen, hundreds of thousands of SMBs and millions of people around even tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, all of a sudden accessing resources, goods across the country, logistics systems, all tying them together. And even here, we thought that e-commerce and all of this would be the realm of some, graduate degrees or, college educated folks. But you can find even someone in a village, in a farm, starting to use it, because the interaction mechanism can be voice. So the ability to talk and place an order, the ability to use natural language in a chat mechanism, the ability to place your product by simply taking a picture of the product and all of a sudden it recognizing it's a bottle of water and then putting it onto a catalog and putting a price and posting it on a website becomes possible. You don't even have to be computer literate to become an e-commerce player anymore. And so the technologies on AI, frankly, are helping a lot of that become a reality. Call centers, I have this problem all the time. Think about it. We call for help or someone's trying to tell us something, and we have call agents that use scripts and kind of work down a tree to try and understand what's going on. A chatbot today can work across all those data silos, take the collective knowledge of thousands of people in the last thousands of calls, and all of a sudden start making sense and give you better answers. I'll give you a great example that some of the folks have been trying out. Is think about something as simple as customer surveys. If you try and ask a survey, they may not know. But vocal recognition, voice recognition, can tell you the tone and the change of the tone of that individual through the course of that call. And before you, rather than asking for a survey, can actually tell satisfied, dissatisfied, more angry, less angry, happier when they left. And you got instantaneous feedback, just the way we can hear by listening in and hearing someone and hearing their body language. We don't have to do surveys. Someone can actually just use all of that recognition to understand what's going on. This one is a great one that I think is an example of how mobility and the edge have helped. India has had hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that have never had the benefit of using the productivity of technology because they've never had a PC or a laptop and never needed it and probably never should have it. Those hundreds of millions of people have never had the benefit of all the capabilities that the rest of us have had. And so by using an app built for, designed in India, with anthropologists looking at how we use things, we created an app called Kaizala, which allows people with just a phone to be able to access many of the tools that I have access to in my offices. They can work using voice. They can work using paradigms and techniques of chats the way they used to doing, and all of a sudden start accessing capabilities that they wouldn't have before. HoloLens. We saw the hospital scenario where people were learning, doctors and surgery were learning by putting 3D holographic lenses on. And this seems like far-fetched, but I'll tell you an example of how this is helping India today. Something as simple as milk production and distribution. Other countries in the world have the benefit of massive central processing that can take milk, process it, distribute it back around the world. There's an efficiency in that scale. There's a quality control capability in that scale that happens. But in India, our road networks, et cetera, aren't good enough to create that. But yet we need lower costs than anyone else in the world. So instead of trying to build central factories, you kind of like take the factories and you put them out elsewhere. The problem becomes you don't have the engineering capability to manage those machines in the rest of the nation. And so using HoloLens, you can take someone who's just a skilled technician versus a high engineer, put on that lens, look at a machine, and some engineer from another part of the world, another part of the country can instantaneously see what's going on and help that technician through the maintenance of the device. And AI can proactively send machine parts before it even breaks, so you don't have to pay money before, but it's there so you don't lose any downtime in that machine. Application of HoloLens in India today. Drones even. Love this one. One of the key challenges, same issue as that road network problem I had. Police, security. Think about it. The one thing I fear most is something is going wrong and I'm not sure if a police or a first response team is going to be able to make the highway and reach me in time. With the ability for someone to press, I'm in trouble, I'm in danger. And all of a sudden a drone to just lift off and just fly to where you are. And at the minimum start taking video, making noise, creating sirens. There's at least some form of scare that's put into someone that's threatening you, and all of a sudden you may get some safety precautions. And so these are the kinds of solutions we can actually put in place today. Love this one too. We've seen hundreds of thousands of drivers out there today. And they're working really hard day and night. How do you prevent and create safety on that? You're just using your phone. And the scanning capability and AI on that phone can see whether the driver is beginning to get tired, whether they're dozing off, whether the next ride should not be given to that driver so that they can take a rest instead and come back and provide safety for them, for the rest of the folks. This was a nice one. Cricket bats. We were with Anil Kumble again yesterday, and he has this great product with Spectracom, where one thing that's been great, if you all watch the IPL or cricket, we see this amazing data about bowling, what the swing is, what the bounce is, what the speed is. If you notice, you don't see so much about the bat, except for that wagon wheel that you see. And Spectracom, by putting a completely non-intrusive IoT device that takes data from the bat and contact, passes it through a device literally behind the stumps, and then to the cloud, processes it using AI, can send right back a power score that tells you what the power rating of that shot was, the likely trajectory of it, et cetera, et cetera. And you get this much richer experience, and batters can all of a sudden learn how they're doing. And by the way, this technology is great because even children can access it using their mobile phones, and they're getting coaching through this when they could never have access to any of this information in other times. So Those are the kinds of technologies. One more I want to talk about, and I think this is another one that's really special in the healthcare space. Real problems that AI is solving, not taking away jobs, but solving real problems that we have. We have a shortage of skilled physicians, and especially about folks that can help, for example, with eye care, given the large level of diabetes cases we have in India. Now, we're never going to solve that problem in a generation. We're not all of a sudden going to have enough doctors to be able to provide care at the right price for everyone. Embedding AI into devices that can scan retinas and taking those to villages, those devices with edge-based AI can take a look at that and say, you know what, this is not a big problem. Hold on. This is truly a problem. Get them to a doctor quickly. Or here's a response that may be needed. So all of a sudden, you're making efficient use of the capacity, the scarce capacity we have, and sequencing things out to make sure that everyone gets the care without dealing with the non-realistic situation of all of a sudden adding physicians that can go to that village. So these are real-life examples of how this new computing fabric and AI is being applied to create solutions we wouldn't have thought were possible because we didn't have the technology for it. And so I think my takeaway, or the ask I have of you to take away, is rethink what you think about when you see and hear the word technology. It's not anything like what you saw in the past. When you go into an office and you see all those devices and people working with each other, when you go into a farm, notice that there's sensors sending things to boxes, sending things to weather stations, that even retailers can tell you when you've walked by a specific product and how long you stopped at that can do merchandising. Hospital rooms like we saw where AI and intelligence holographics are all connecting up devices and patient information and data and experts. Cities being connected with each other, oil rigs out there. All of these things create one massive computer. That when you think about all of the components you can work with as all the things that exist, you will imagine solutions like you've never imagined before. And so we'll keep building the technologies to help you do magic with those ideas and to embed this new fabric into the world. But I can just ask you to just imagine what's possible with this. Microsoft's mission has always been to create the tools necessary for other people to create and do great things. And I can tell you that if we did a lot in the previous 2 decades, I'm just incredibly excited about what all the technologies we're creating now can do for all of you and what you can do with it. So thank you very much for the time and attention. Good luck with the conference. Enjoy the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meetul Patel. May I request you to stay for a couple of more minutes? Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us in this very, very important keynote address. And I will now request Mr. K.K. Mahapatra, Organizing Secretary and Head Infocom ABP Private Limited, to kindly come forward and present a memento as a token of our gratitude. A huge round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir.